If you've spent 5 minutes on the internet, you've seen it. Americans strutting with that larger-than-life confidence, proudly declaring that their sports, their food, their movies, even their way of life is number one. They've got the World Series, which, spoiler alert, isn't actually the world. They call their champion world champion, even when the only teams competing are from the US and maybe Canada if they're feeling generous. And then there's the classic line you'll hear from politicians, celebrities, or your average Joe: America is the greatest country on earth. Bold claim, right? To outsiders, this comes off as cocky, loud, maybe even delusional. But inside the US, this confidence is baked into the culture. From the time kids are little, they pledge allegiance to the flag, sing about freedom, and grow up hearing that America is the land of opportunity, the ultimate dream factory. It's more than just national pride, it's almost a national identity. But is it all just hot air, or is there something behind it? That's what we're digging into today. We're going to explore the reasons Americans think they're the best, from history and military power to Hollywood, sports, and yes, even that famous American dream. Some of these reasons will make you nod and say, fair enough. Others will make you laugh out loud. And don't worry, we're not here to roast Americans without mercy. We'll poke fun, sure, but we'll also try to understand why this mindset exists in the first place. Because love it or hate it, America's self-confidence is one of the country's biggest exports, right up there with McDonald's and Marvel movies. So buckle up, because by the end of this, you'll either be rolling your eyes or secretly admitting that maybe, just maybe, Americans have a point. But first, let's talk about the big one: history and winning wars. America's love of victory and what he pride. If there's one thing Americans never get tired of saying, it's, we saved the world in World War II. And to be fair, that's not entirely wrong. The US entered late, but when they did, their industrial power and manpower helped tip the balance against Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan. Hollywood has made sure everyone remembers that part, with movies like Saving Private Ryan, Band of Brothers, and even Captain America. The story is always the same: the brave American soldier showing up to save the day while the world cheers. And this victory wasn't just about military triumph. It became the foundation of American confidence. The US went from being an upstart country to a global superpower almost overnight. Imagine going from the new kid to the guy who runs the block in less than a decade. That's exactly what happened. Suddenly, America had the strongest military, the biggest economy, and a seat at the head of every major world decision. For Americans, this wasn't just history, it was proof. Proof that they were the best. And when you grow up with grandparents and parents telling you, our boys saved Europe, saved the Pacific, saved democracy, you internalize that pride. Even today, politicians reference it whenever they want to stir up patriotism. It's like a national badge of honor. We don't just win wars, we win the war. Of course, from the British perspective, or the Russian one, or literally anyone else, the story looks a little different. Brits might say, we were fighting for years before you even showed up. Russians will point out that they lost millions holding off the Nazis long before American boots hit the ground. But in the American narrative, they were the heroes, the saviors, the ones who carried the final torch of victory. And here's the kicker: this love of victory didn't stop with what to. It's why American sports teams are called world champions, even if only Americans play. It's why US presidents still describe their country as the leader of the free world. Victory is not just a moment in history, it's part of the brand. But if you think that why pride explains everything, wait until you hear the next reason. Because beyond wars and history, Americans also think they're the best because of something they invented, or at least they think they invented: the American dream. The American dream. Ask an American why their country is the best, and 9 times out of 10, you'll hear some version of, because in America, anyone can make it. That's the heart of what they call the American dream. It's this powerful idea that no matter who you are, where you come from, or how broke you start, you can climb the ladder and become rich, successful, or famous, just through hard work and grit. The story is baked into everything: movies, TV shows, school textbooks, even political speeches. From the rags to riches tale of Andrew Carnegie, the immigrant who built a steel empire, to Oprah Winfrey, who went from poverty to becoming one of the most powerful women in media. Americans love telling these stories because they reinforce the belief that America is the ultimate opportunity machine. And here's the thing: The dream doesn't just stay within American borders. Globally, millions of people bought into it too. That's why you see waves of immigrants coming to the US throughout history. Irish, Italians, Germans, Asians, Latin Americans, all chasing that same promise that life could be better in the States than anywhere else. To Americans, this idea is proof that their system is unmatched. They'll point to Silicon Valley billionaires who started in garages like Steve Jobs or Jeff Bezos and say, see, that's what makes America number one. And sure, some of those stories are true, but here's the funny part. It's also kind of a selective memory. For every billionaire success story, there are millions of people working 3 jobs who never make it. But in the US, the possibility is what matters most, not the odds. From the outside, though, Europeans might roll their eyes. Brits, for example, might say, well, that's cute, but we've got a pretty decent quality of life without needing 2 side hustles and a dream. Scandinavians, they'll shrug and point to their free healthcare and education and say, we don't need a dream, we've got systems. But Americans? No. Americans will insist their model is the gold standard because in their eyes, the dream is proof that they're the best. And the funny thing is, even when people criticize America, they secretly admire that sense of possibility. It's why so many actors, athletes, and entrepreneurs around the world still want to make it in America. Love it or hate it, the dream is contagious. But here's where it gets interesting. The American dream isn't just about work and opportunity. It's tied to another habit that makes Americans really think they're the best. Their obsession with freedom. Freedom and patriotism. If there's one word Americans never get tired of saying, it's freedom. Ask any American why their country is the greatest, and you'll hear it be cute. Because we're the freest nation on earth. And to be fair, freedom has been part of America's identity since day one. The whole country was born out of rebellion, telling the British Crown, no thanks, we'll do our own thing. That spirit stuck. You can see it everywhere, in their flag, in their national anthem, in the way kids pledge allegiance every morning at school. Yes, that's right. While British kids are half asleep mumbling through assembly, American kids are standing, hand over heart, promising loyalty to the stars and stripes before math class. It's like patriotism is part of the school curriculum, and Americans don't just talk about freedom, they put it on everything. Cars are called Liberty. Fireworks on the 4th of July? A celebration of freedom, political speeches? Every other word is freedom. Even fast food chains love to throw it around in ads. It tastes the freedom. Imagine biting into a burger and suddenly feeling like George Washington. Now, is America really the freest? That's where the debate starts. Europeans often raise an eyebrow here. Brits might say, well, technically we can also criticize our government, vote, travel, and, oh yeah, we have free healthcare too. Scandinavians will remind Americans that freedom also means not going bankrupt if you break your arm. But in the American mind, freedom isn't just about laws, it's about attitude. It's the sense that no one tells you what to do, that you control your destiny, and that you can live however you want, even if it looks reckless to outsiders. And here's the kicker. Americans tie freedom directly to being the best. They see it as their unique selling point, the thing that sets them apart from every other country. That's why you'll see so many flags waving outside homes, why country songs belt out "Proud to be an American," and why politicians end every speech with "God bless America." To them, freedom isn't just a value, it's proof of superiority. But freedom isn't the only thing Americans point to. There's another area where they love to claim the top spot, their innovation and technology. Because if freedom makes them proud, Silicon Valley makes them feel unstoppable. Innovation and technology. If freedom is America's favorite word, then innovation is its favorite brag. Americans love pointing out that so many world-changing inventions came from their soil. The light bulb? Thomas Edison. The airplane? The Wright brothers. The internet? Born out of U.S. defense research. Even the iPhone in your hand. Yeah, it was designed in California. To an American, this is hard evidence that they're the best. And it's not just about the big historical stuff. Look at Silicon Valley. The world's tech hub isn't in Paris or Berlin, it's in California, where billion-dollar ideas are practically brewed alongside pumpkin spice lattes. Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, Tesla, all American. Americans love to say, see, we don't just dream, we invent the future. What's more, innovation has become part of American identity. Kids grow up hearing stories about garage startups, 2 college dropouts building a company that changes the world. It feeds into the anything is possible here narrative. The culture rewards risk-taking, and even if you fail, you're still seen as bold for trying. Compare that to Britain, where failure might be met with a polite but brutal, well, that was ambitious. From the outside, though, Europeans sometimes roll their eyes. They'll argue that innovation doesn't mean everything America invents is good. Sure, the US gave us the internet, but it also gave us Twitter arguments and TikTok dance challenges. And let's not forget fast food drive-thrus, giant SUVs, and reality TV. Innovation isn't always progress. Still, for Americans, being the world's idea factory is proof they're ahead of the pack. They love the narrative of being pioneers, whether it's landing on the moon or building AI. Just to even their movies feed into it. Hollywood has spent decades telling the world that if something epic happens, chances are it's an American leading the charge. But here's the twist. Americans don't just think they're the best at inventing things. They also think they're the best at being big. And I don't just mean portion sizes, I mean the whole bigger is better philosophy that shapes everything from highways to houses to ambitions. Bigger is better mentality. If there's one thing America has mastered, it's size. Americans genuinely believe that being bigger automatically means being better. And in many cases, they live by that rule, like it's carved into the Constitution. Start with food. American portion sizes could feed a small village in Europe. Order a medium soda in the US and Brits stare in disbelief. It's practically the size of a fire extinguisher. Burgers stacked so high they need skewers to hold them together. Pizza's the size of a steering wheel. Milkshakes that come with extra cups, just in case. Americans see this as generosity. Europeans see it as a cry for help. It's not just the food. Look at the cars. While Brits zip around in compact hatchbacks, Americans are cruising highways in pickup trucks so big they could double as aircraft carriers. Houses? Same story. The average American home is nearly twice the size of the average British one. And don't even get me started on highways. The sheer width of American roads makes British roundabouts look like toy train sets. But for Americans, size is more than convenience. It's symbolic. A big house means success. A huge car means power. Massive stadiums, skyscrapers, shopping malls. It all screams, we've made it. To them, being the best is about scale, about doing everything in a way that dwarfs everyone else. Of course, Europeans often find this hilarious. Brits in particular will politely remark, well, it seems a bit excessive, doesn't it? But Americans embrace the excess. To them, if you're not going big, you're not going at all. That's why supersize was invented in America. That's why Texas exists. It's basically the living embodiment of bigger is better. And this obsession with size ties right back into the American belief in greatness. To them, building the tallest skyscrapers, having the biggest military budget, producing the largest blockbuster movies, these are signs that America isn't just a country, it's the country. Entertainment and pop culture domination. If you ask an American why their country is the best, chances are they'll point straight to Hollywood. And honestly, they've got a point. The US doesn't just make movies, it makes the movies. From Marvel superheroes to Disney fairy tales, from Star Wars galaxies to Oscar-winning dramas, American cinema has shaped how the world sees not just America, but itself. But it's not only movies. Music, the US basically wrote the global playlist. Jazz, rock and roll, hip-hop, country, pop. So many genres were born in America before taking over the charts worldwide. And let's not forget global icons like Michael Jackson, Beyoncé, or Taylor Swift. Ask someone in Europe to name 5 American celebrities, and they'll rattle them off without even thinking. Ask an American to name 5 European stars, and you might get Adele, Harry Potter. Does James Bond count? TV shows are another flex. Friends, The Simpsons, Breaking Bad, Game of Thrones. Okay, filmed in Northern Ireland, but still American produced. These shows aren't just entertainment, they're cultural landmarks. For many people abroad, their first idea of America came from watching TV characters hanging out at diners, going to prom, or yelling, "How you doing?" And here's the kicker. Americans know this. They know their entertainment is everywhere. That's why they're convinced they set the global cultural agenda. If people in Paris are quoting lines from The Office, or teens in Tokyo are learning TikTok dances invented in Los Angeles, that feels like proof. Proof that American culture doesn't just dominate, it defines what's cool. Europeans, of course, sometimes roll their eyes. They'll argue that it's all commercialized fluff, that not every explosion-filled blockbuster is art. But deep down, even they've got a favorite American movie or a playlist filled with US artists. That's the sneaky power of pop culture. It's global propaganda, but with catchy soundtracks. Sports and the obsession with winning. If you really want to understand why Americans think they're the best, just look at how they treat sports. In the US, winning isn't just the goal, it's practically a religion. And nothing shows that more than the way Americans celebrate their games. Take the Super Bowl. It's not just a football game, it's a national holiday. Families gather, snacks pile up like mountains, and millions of people who don't even like football still tune in for the halftime show and the commercials. And let's be honest, only America could turn advertising into the main event. Then there's the Olympics. Americans show up expecting medals the way Brits expect rain. Every event feels like it's already scripted. Cue the US anthem, cue the flag waving, cue the commentator declaring another incredible win for Team USA. And if by chance America doesn't dominate in a sport, don't worry, they'll just invent a new one where they do. Case in point, baseball. It's called the World Series, but here's the funny part. The world doesn't even play. It's just American teams with a token Canadian one tossed in. That's peak confidence. Basketball, too. The NBA isn't just a league, it's a global brand. People in Europe, Asia, Africa, they wear LeBron jerseys. They debate Michael Jordan versus Kobe Bryant. They shoot hoops in alleys pretending they're part of the Lakers. And who started all that? America. Which only reinforces the idea that they set the global standard for sports culture. But it's not just about the games, it's the attitude, the chants of USA. USA. At every international competition, the pride in being number one, the refusal to settle for silver. To Americans, second place isn't respectable, it's losing. Brits, by contrast, will shrug and say, well, at least we tried. Americans? Nope. It's gold or nothing. And this winning mentality seeps into everything else. Politics, business, even casual debates about who has the best pizza. It's always framed as a competition. Always about being on top. For Americans, sports don't just entertain, they symbolize the nation's identity. Winning equals greatness, and greatness equals America. But here's the twist. Sports are just one arena where America flexes its "we're number one" mindset. Another place where this confidence shows up? Work culture and hustle. And trust me, that's a whole other level of why Americans think they are the best. Work ethic and hustle culture. If there's one thing Americans love to brag about, besides their sports teams and portion sizes, it's how hard they work. The US practically invented the concept of hustle culture. You know, the whole rise and grind, sleep when you're dead. If you're not working 80 hours a week, do you even care? Attitude. In America, work isn't just a job, it's an identity. Ask someone at a party in London what they do, and they'll probably say, oh, I'm in marketing, and then quickly move on to talk about the weather. Ask an American the same question, and they'll launch into a mini TED talk about their career path, their side hustle, their startup idea, and their 5-year plan to take over the world. Work is life, and life is work. That's not to say Europeans don't work hard, but they work to live. Americans, they live to work. And here's the thing, they're proud of it. The idea that you should be constantly pushing, grinding, and striving is so baked into the culture that people wear burnout like a badge of honor. Oh, you got 8 hours of sleep? Must be nice. I only slept 4 because I was answering emails at 3 a.m. Respect the grind, bro. Vacations? Don't even get me started. Brits will take their full holiday allowance, guilt-free, and maybe throw in a long weekend just because the sun came out. Americans, meanwhile, leave vacation days unused. Yes, unused. Because the fear is, if you take too much time off, someone hungrier will outwork you and snatch your spot. It's like a never-ending competition. But this relentless drive has benefits too. It's part of why America is seen as so innovative, so entrepreneurial. Silicon Valley wouldn't exist without thousands of people working insane hours fueled by caffeine, ambition, and the belief that they can change the world with an app that delivers dog food faster. To the American mindset, success equals effort. The harder you work, the better you are. And that's one more reason Americans think they're the best. Because in their eyes, no one else hustles quite as hard. But here's the irony. While Americans are grinding away at the office, there's one area where their confidence isn't about work at all. It's about freedom. And that's probably the biggest card America always plays when saying they're number one. Wealth and consumer culture. Nothing screams, we're the best, louder than America's obsession with wealth and the ability to show it off. If the US had a national motto besides "In God We Trust," it would probably be "More is better." And for many Americans, being able to buy big, live big, and consume big is a badge of honor. Step into an American shopping mall and you'll understand immediately. The sheer scale of it, the food courts the size of football fields, stores that sell 47 brands of jeans, the fact that you can buy a hot dog, get your nails done, and shop for a flat-screen TV all under one roof. It's peak consumerism. To Americans, that variety isn't overwhelming. It's proof of freedom and success. Choice equals greatness. Now let's talk cars. Brits think a nice car means a modest hatchback that fits on their narrow streets. Americans? Nope. They want trucks so big they need a ladder to climb in. SUVs that look like they belong in a military convoy. And to them, it's not just transportation, it's a statement. Look at my giant car, look at my freedom, look at my success. And of course, houses. The American dream isn't a cozy two-bedroom flat in the suburbs. It's a five-bedroom house with a garage bigger than most European homes. And if you visit a typical US suburb, you'll see lawns manicured within an inch of their lives, driveways with 2 or 3 cars, and neighborhoods that look like they were copy-pasted from a catalog. But here's the thing, Americans aren't shy about flaunting it. Designer brands, flashy jewelry, tech gadgets, showing off wealth is part of the culture. In Britain, being too flashy can feel a bit tacky, like you're trying too hard. In America, it's celebrated. Flexing is practically a national sport. And this isn't just about individuals, it's the entire economy. America's status as the world's biggest consumer market fuels the idea that they're the center of the global shopping universe. Companies around the world bend over backwards to sell in the US because if you make it there, you've really made it. That kind of purchasing power makes Americans feel like they're sitting at the top of the food chain. So when Americans think they're the best, a big part of it comes from this sense that they live in a land of abundance. More food, more products, more choice, more everything. And in their minds, that excess equals excellence. But here's where it gets interesting. Because for all the money and consumer power, Americans also lean heavily on another idea to prove they're the best. Their role as world's cultural influencers. And that's where things get really bold. Cultural influence on the world. If there's one thing that really makes Americans puff out their chests, it's the fact that their culture has seeped into nearly every corner of the globe. Music, movies, fashion, fast food. America doesn't just produce it, they export it. And for many Americans, this global influence is proof that they're number one.
Cette musique
For
m'amène
Americans,
avec
this is a point of pride. See, everyone watches our stuff. Everyone speaks our pop culture language. And it's not just the big screen. American music dominates charts worldwide. Whether it's hip-hop, rock, country, or pop, US artists set the trends. Even when Europeans have their own thriving music scenes, they often end up blending with American styles. And to Americans, that just reinforces the idea. We're leading the cultural parade, and the rest of the world is following the beat. Food? Don't even get started. McDonald's, Starbucks, KFC, you can find them in places where you can't even drink the tap water. To Americans, that golden M arch in a foreign country isn't just a restaurant, it's a symbol of their influence. Sure, Europeans may roll their eyes and say, it's junk food, but the fact that they still line up for it speaks volumes. Even language gets pulled into the mix. English may be a British export originally, but let's be real. Today's global English is heavily shaped by Americans. From business jargon to internet slang, phrases like cool, awesome, and bro are all American cultural exports, and Americans know it. They see TikTok trends, Netflix shows, and memes being shared worldwide and think, yep, the world copies us. But of course, this dominance comes with criticism too. Some people see it as cultural imperialism, like America is drowning out local traditions with Hollywood blockbusters and Starbucks frappuccinos. But to Americans, that criticism almost proves their point. They're so influential, people can't stop talking about them. And that's why, in their minds, cultural influence equals superiority. If the world is listening to your music, watching your movies, and drinking your coffee, you must be doing something right, right? Education and Ivy League prestige. If there's one thing Americans love to flash as proof of their greatness, it's their universities. Just say the names: Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Stanford, MIT, and watch Americans light up like they personally built the libraries themselves. These schools aren't just universities in the US, they're global brands like Gucci or Rolex. Having Harvard on your CV is basically a golden ticket anywhere in the world. And here's the thing, Americans know it. They see international students flying across the globe just to study in their classrooms, paying eye-watering tuition fees, and they take that as confirmation that US education is the best of the best. To them, the fact that people from Britain, China, India, and beyond line up for a shot at an American diploma says it all. The pride doesn't stop at the Ivy League either. Tech hubs like MIT and Stanford pump out CEOs, inventors, and Nobel Prize winners like factories. Even Hollywood celebrities love to flaunt their Ivy League backgrounds in interviews, as if to remind everyone that brains and fame both belong to America. And the universities play right into it. Decked out campuses that look like castles, billion-dollar endowments, sports teams with cult followings. It's not just education, it's a lifestyle. From a European perspective, this can seem a little over the top. Briss will casually say, well, yes, Oxford and Cambridge have been around since the 1200s, thank you very much. Germans and Scandinavians might add, we give world-class education for free, actually. But that doesn't matter to Americans. In their eyes, prestige isn't about history or affordability, it's about branding. And when it comes to branding, U.S. universities are untouchable. And let's not forget Hollywood again. How many movies and TV shows have you seen set on an American college campus with the red brick buildings, the frat parties, the football games under the Friday night lights? America turned higher education into pop culture. That cultural export only strengthens their belief that they're the global leaders in knowledge. So when Americans boast about being the best, they'll often point to their universities as living proof. The smartest minds, the biggest breakthroughs, the flashiest diplomas. In their narrative, higher education is another crown jewel of American greatness. Space exploration and NASA pride. If there's one achievement that Americans will never let the world forget, it's this. They put a man on the moon. In 1969, when Neil Armstrong took that one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind, the U.S. didn't just win the space race against the Soviet Union, it locked in a permanent bragging right. To this day, Americans point to the moon landing as proof that their country is capable of literally reaching heights no one else has. And it's not just history. NASA remains one of America's proudest institutions. Space shuttles, Mars rovers, the Hubble telescope, these aren't just scientific tools, they're national symbols. Every time NASA posts a new photo of a galaxy or a Martian landscape, Americans feel a little taller, like their country has eyes on the universe while everyone else is stuck on Earth. Then came SpaceX, Blue Origin, and the new era of private space exploration. Suddenly, billionaires are shooting rockets into the sky like it's a weekend hobby. And where are all these companies based? The US, of course. To Americans, that's not just cool, it's destiny. They see themselves as pioneers, explorers, modern-day cowboys swapping horses for rockets. Europeans, on the other hand, often view this with a mix of awe and amusement. Brits might joke, well, good for them, but shouldn't they fix healthcare before colonizing Mars? Still, deep down, there's respect. Because while other countries talk about space, America makes it happen. The American flag is still the only one planted on the lunar surface, and that fact alone is enough to keep the U.S. chest-thumping for generations. For Americans, space exploration ties into their whole self-image. Bold, ambitious, unafraid of the impossible. To them, reaching for the stars isn't just science. It's proof of greatness. It's a reminder to themselves and the world that when it comes to doing the extraordinary, America doesn't just participate, it leads. And this belief in being the first, or the biggest, or the boldest doesn't stop at space. It shows up in their sense of global leadership, the idea that America isn't just a country, but the world's referee, role model, and self-declared protector. Healthcare and medical innovation. Now, let's be real. If you bring up healthcare around Americans, you'll probably get some defensive laughter or a rant about insurance bills. The system is expensive, messy, and often criticized. But here's the catch. Americans don't just think about healthcare as paying for a doctor's visit. They think about it in terms of innovation. And on that front, they see themselves as leaders of the pack. Take medical research. The U.S. is home to some of the world's top hospitals, research centers, and pharmaceutical companies. New cancer treatments, groundbreaking surgeries, high-tech medical devices, many of them come out of American labs. The first successful organ transplants, pacemakers, and many vaccines were developed with U.S. leadership. And when the world needed COVID vaccines fast? Yep, Pfizer and Moderna, both American developed. Then there's the idea of medical tourism, except in reverse. While Americans sometimes travel abroad for cheaper surgeries, people from around the world still fly to the U.S. for specialized treatments. Hospitals like the Mayo Clinic or Johns Hopkins are seen as the gold standard, the places you go when you want the best of the best. and that reputation feeds the American narrative. Our healthcare may cost a fortune, but it's the kind of healthcare people trust their lives with. Of course, Europeans see it differently. Brits with the NHS or Germans with universal healthcare often say, "What's the point of innovation if regular people can't afford it?" And they're not wrong. But for Americans, the focus isn't on affordability, it's on excellence. The fact that their doctors, their researchers, and their pharmaceutical giants are at the cutting edge of medicine is enough to convince them they're number one. And here's another piece: medical education. Just like with their Ivy League universities, U.S. medical schools are considered world class. Being a Harvard trained doctor or a Johns Hopkins surgeon isn't just a career, it's a status symbol. That prestige helps reinforce the idea that America produces not just treatments, but the talent behind them. So, while healthcare debates rage on inside the country, when Americans step back and look at their global impact, they see a different picture. They see themselves as the medical innovators, the ones pushing science forward and saving lives with technology no one else can match. But healthcare is only one part of this puzzle. Because beyond hospitals and labs, Americans also think they're the best when it comes to something far more everyday, their food culture. And that's where things get spicy: inventions and entrepreneurship. When Americans say they're the best, one of their favorite arguments is, "Look at all the stuff we invented." And to be fair, they've got a list that's hard to ignore. The airplane? American. The internet? Born in US labs. The iPhone that half the world is glued to? Designed in California. Even things like credit cards, the microwave oven, and GPS all have American fingerprints all over them. And this isn't just luck, it's culture. America thrives on entrepreneurship. The whole garage startup story is practically a national myth at this point. Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak building Apple in a garage, Jeff Bezos selling books online before creating Amazon, Elon Musk launching PayPal before turning to rockets. It's the American blueprint. Take a crazy idea, risk everything, hustle hard, and somehow turn it into a $1 billion empire. This mindset is baked into the national identity. In school, kids are taught about inventors and entrepreneurs like they're superheroes. Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, the Wright brothers, these names are celebrated not just as inventors, but as proof that America is the land where imagination becomes reality. It's no wonder so many people abroad dream of moving to the US to make it big. Europeans, of course, push back. They'll say, well, penicillin was discovered in Britain, and the steam engine fueled the Industrial Revolution in Europe. Thank you very much. And they're right. Plenty of groundbreaking inventions came from elsewhere. But Americans aren't shy about claiming the spotlight. For them, it's less about who invented what first, and more about who turned it into a global phenomenon. Airplanes existed before the Wright brothers, but America made aviation mainstream. Computers had roots in Europe, but Silicon Valley turned them into world-changing tools. And then there's the patent game. The US files more patents than nearly any other country, a fact Americans love to point to as evidence that they're still leading the world in ideas. Add in venture capital culture, where investors throw millions at wild ideas, and you get a system that practically breeds innovation. So when Americans boast about being the best, they're not just talking about politics or sports. They're talking about shaping the modern world. They look at their inventions and their entrepreneurs and think, if we keep building the future, how can we not be number one? But here's the twist. For all their love of innovation, Americans also pride themselves on something far less futuristic and far more patriotic. Their symbols and national pride might be one of the strongest reasons they think they're the best. Infrastructure and mega projects. If there's one thing Americans love to show off, it's their ability to build big. Really big. For them, size isn't just a measurement, it's a statement. From the moment you step foot in the US, you're greeted by highways that feel like runways, bridges that stretch for miles, and skyscrapers that pierce the clouds. To Americans, this sheer scale is proof that they're operating on a different level. Take the interstate highway system. Over 46,000 miles of road crisscrossing the country, built after World War II, and still one of the largest infrastructure projects in human history. Brits can't even drive 20 minutes without hitting a roundabout, while Americans can barrel down a freeway for hours in one direction without seeing a single bend. That kind of scale becomes part of the national pride. Look how vast and connected we are. And then there are the skyscrapers. The Empire State Building was once the tallest building in the world and built in just over a year. 1 year. That kind of speed and ambition is something Americans point to as proof of their can-do spirit. Then came Chicago, New York, and now places like One World Trade Center. Modern megastructures designed not just to be functional, but to scream confidence. But it doesn't stop there. The Hoover Dam, completed in the 1930s, was such an engineering marvel that it became a tourist attraction. To this day, Americans hold it up as an example of their ability to take on impossible projects and pull them off. And of course, they didn't stop at dams. They went to space too. NASA's launch facilities are practically monuments of ambition. Compare that to Europe, where infrastructure is often older, more compact, and built with efficiency rather than spectacle in mind. Brits admire their centuries-old bridges, cobblestone streets, and trains that mostly run on time. Americans, though, want you to look at their cities from an airplane window and say, wow, that's massive. And here's the kicker. Modern megaprojects keep fueling this mindset. Think of Elon Musk's boring company tunnels, SpaceX launch pads, or even sports stadiums the size of small towns. To Americans, every giant build proves they're still the world's heavyweight champion of ambition. So when they say they're the best, it's not just about technology or culture, it's about what they can physically put on the map. Big dams, big roads, big towers. In the American mind, if it's massive, it's magnificent. And if it's magnificent, it must be American. But beyond the buildings and roads, there's another everyday thing that convinces Americans they're the best: their customer service culture. And for foreigners, that can be just as shocking as a 12-lane highway. Diversity and immigration. Ask an American why their country is the best, and sooner or later you'll hear this: we're a nation of immigrants. It's part of the national story, baked into everything from history lessons to political speeches. The idea is that America isn't just one culture, it's a mix of the world's best bits, blended together into something brand new. The Statue of Liberty is basically the mascot of this mindset. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. Millions of people came through Ellis Island, from Italians and Irish in the 19th century to modern-day arrivals from Asia, Africa, and Latin America. Each wave added a new flavor, literally in the case of food. Where else can you grab tacos for lunch, sushi for dinner, and a New York bagel for breakfast the next morning? Americans point to this mix as proof of strength. They'll say, look, the smartest minds from around the globe want to come here. We attract ambition. And in a way, they're right. Some of the country's biggest success stories came from immigrants or their children. Elon Musk, South Africa; Sergey Brin, Russia; Arnold Schwarzenegger, Austria. The American dream is built on the idea that no matter where you're from, you can make it big if you work hard enough. Europeans see diversity differently. Many European countries have deep cultural roots that go back centuries, so national identity is often tied to tradition. America, by contrast, prides itself on reinvention. If Britain is about heritage, America is about hustle. And for Americans, that constant influx of people and ideas feels like proof they're ahead of the game. Of course, the reality isn't always smooth. Immigration debates are some of the most heated in U.S. politics. But even with the challenges, the melting pot narrative remains a core part of American self-confidence. The idea is, if the whole world is sending us their people, then we must be the place to be. And that's the kicker. Immigration isn't just history, it's ongoing. Every year, students, entrepreneurs, and workers from around the globe still choose the U.S. as their destination. To Americans, that's all the validation they need. People vote with their feet and millions keep showing up. So when Americans say they're the best, part of it comes from this belief that they're not just a country. They're a collection of the world's best and brightest, all packed into one giant experiment. So after all that, why do Americans think they're the best? Well, it's not just one reason. It's a cocktail of freedom, wealth, ambition, inventions, Hollywood glitz, space rockets, Ivy League diplomas, giant highways, and yes, even Big Macs. Add in the melting pot of cultures and that ever-present optimism, and you've got a country that genuinely believes it's on top of the world. From their point of view, they've got the receipts. The moon landing, Silicon Valley. Beyoncé, Harvard, skyscrapers that scrape the clouds. Sports leagues so big they call their championship the World Series, even though no one outside the U.S. plays. And whether you agree or not, Americans see all these things as proof that they're not just doing well, they're leading. Of course, the rest of the world sees it differently. Europeans might laugh at the over-the-top confidence. Brits might sip their tea and mutter, a bit loud, aren't they? No. And plenty of people point out America's flaws. Healthcare, inequality, politics, you name it. But here's the thing. None of that shakes the American belief. Because at the heart of their national character is this relentless conviction that they can always fix it, always do better, always rise higher. And maybe that's the secret. Believing you're the best, even when you're not perfect, pushes you to keep acting like you are. It's confidence as a self-fulfilling prophecy. So, what do you think? Are Americans justified in their we're number one attitude, or is it just national ego turned up to 11? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I guarantee this will be one lively debate. And hey, whether you love it, hate it, or just find it fascinating, one thing's for sure. America's talent for believing in itself might be the most American thing of all.